Awesome. Awesome. So we'll go ahead and post this in the Discord and we are good to go.
It's-
Do I look like shit?
no, it still has the heavy rain
What?
thumbnail.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it does.
It says card games on my screen.
No, the thumbnail is heavy rain.
Ah,
Yeah,
yeah, my bad.
I'm gonna throw this up. Yeah, just don't fucking do it again. God, I'd pay good money for my beard just to fill in.
Rogaine.
I don't want to
Rogaine.
be like, I'm not gonna. I was gonna say like someone, but we're live now, so never mind. But I don't want to be one of those guys that use Rogaine. You know, I want to be organic.
I've known some people that have. It's all good.
Bro,
All right.
it still shows the whatever. It's fine.
All right. Well, we'll be fine.
Fix it
We'll
later.
fix it. We'll fix it in post.
Yeah, let me post that we're live.
All right, cool.
Oh no, now it's updated. At least when I put it in the Discord. Cool.
All right, cool.
All right, man, take it away. I'm excited.
All
to
right.
learn.
Let's clap in.
Right.
3, 2, 3. Did it unplug? Sorry, everybody. Matt's mic has unplugged. We're gonna clap in here. We're gonna go ahead and give it. You probably have to adjust your settings now um, inside of the software. Oh, but you can't change your mic while can't hear you.
Damn. Third time's the charm.
All right, cool. So let's clap in. 3, 2, 1. Cool. All right. Wow, Matt, how you doing?
Hold on, I don't even know if we're live.
We are live.
Are we?
Yeah, we got a slight delay, but we're live.
Okay, let me repost it. I think they gave us a new URL. Oh no, it's the same one. Okay, cool. Okay.
We ready?
Cool. Yeah. Do you want to clap in again?
Let's clap in. 3, 2, 1. All right, sounds good. What's up, Matt?
Baby, it's a long day. I'm excited to record.
Yeah,
I
me too.
I've been fired up all day. You know, it's 2021. You know, it's just Omicron just came out. Well, I'm not sure when this episode's releasing, but Omicron just came out as of November 29th. The market was in shambles. Actually, no, that was on Friday, last week Friday. So the 26th, the market was in shambles. My gambling addiction was in jeopardy, and it was not great. Not great. I don't have a gambling addiction, guys.
In the last, yeah.
I gotta,
You made
I
any
gotta
good plays in the
preface
last 2 weeks?
You know, I usually just end up breaking even.
Okay, that's good. That's better than losing.
Yeah, I'd like to preface with everyone. I don't have an issue. Says the guy who has an issue.
Where-
Don't. Only invest if you know what you're doing, and I don't know what I'm doing.
Not financial advice.
Not financial advice.
Yeah. Funny enough, we may touch on gambling in today's episode.
Oh, I think we might. I can see how.
Yeah,
that
I
could
think we
happen.
are, and I'm excited to kind of go down the rabbit hole here. Now, this has been on the back burner of anything's possible topics for a little while. I think I wrote this down a little while ago with the expectation of really focusing on the digital realm for card games, games like Hearthstone, Magic the Gathering Arena, Legends of Runeterra, Gwent, all these digitally native card games that have really gotten big in in the last 7 years, really, since 2014 when Hearthstone came out and really changed the landscape for digital card games. And as I started doing research on the topic, I kind of went down the rabbit hole and ended up learning so much about card games in general and how universal they really are for just the human experience and the human cultures in general.
I mean, think about it, right? It's like the one game that everyone plays some variation of, whether you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh, whether you're gambling at the casinos, whether you're my dad that plays solitaire for like 2 hours every night. You know, it's like everyone in some shape or form has engaged in card games. You know, and I mean, I think probably a lot of what our listeners will think of when we talk about card games are the games like Hearthstone, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering, or any of the other offshoot card games that have came out. There's hundreds, right? But there's
Hundreds. Oh,
also so
there's
many,
so
whether
many.
it's like, and again, I'm pulling a lot to the gambling realm today, but like blackjack, so many
Texas
casino
Hold'em,
games,
five card stud,
so many
spades, drink,
non-casino games with normal playing cards, like
go fish.
go fish, excuse
Yeah.
me. Fuck.
Or even
Um,
drinking games like
drinking
spades,
games,
King's Cup.
King's
There's
Cup,
just so many.
Egyptian rat
Uh,
slap, I think is another one.
oh, Egyptian rat screw, isn't that one called?
Maybe
Played that
I'm
a
not
lot
sure.
before.
War. There's so
Um,
many.
there is just a wide history of card games that go back, actually all the way to 9th century China, as far as back as we can tell. Back then, card games actually served, or cards served as proxies for money. In games back then, they were actually called money-suited cards, or the
Oh.
Japanese word for money-suited cards. And early then, cards even had different suits, up to four different suits, depending on the variation of cards that you would use. Um, 9th century China, so going back very far. Um, all the way back to 13th century Persia, there was a card game called, I'm going to butcher the name here, Ganjife. And in India, in the 16th century, there was a version of Ganjife, but the cards were circular, kind of like modern day Pogs,
Oh.
circular, like kind of cutout cards. In Egypt, they even had a game called, butcher this one too, Mamluk, Mamluk.
Man, look, I buy
Uh,
that. Yeah.
yeah, there's just always been a card game that has been played throughout the historical, in the last more than 1,000 years. And as cards moved through Europe, the suits of the cards, the types of cards that we used, have evolved. And through the centuries, France is actually the country that has established the modern deck, of the most popular deck, four suit 52 card deck that is used in every casino all across the world, and is known, pretty widely for the last 200 years, and is the basis for a game like poker. Poker actually does come from an Italian bluffing betting game called Primero, which evolved through the years and made its way overseas over the Pacific to Canada in the early 1800s, where it was played on steamboats and Western saloons all throughout the United States in the early 1800s, eventually becoming the most popular game, getting banned, getting legalized, getting people in all sorts of trouble, blah, blah, blah. Eventually leading to, the mecca of card game, the mecca city of card games, really, Las Vegas, Nevada, being
Yes.
formed in the United States. The thing is, I want to. The reason I mention all this is I want to really sell the idea of, how card games have evolved, the fact that we as humans have really been playing them for longer than you even realize, longer than we really think about, and they're a huge backbone for the infrastructure of a lot of cities, and a lot of places. New Jersey had a very large gambling population and casino population, up until they moved over to Las Vegas, Nevada, where now Las Vegas is obviously the worldwide mecca for the World Series of Poker and all sorts of other card games that you can play there. Now, the gamers, I'd say the nerdy gamers' introduction to modern day card games is often the trading card game or the collectible card game, right? And in 1993, a little card game comes out, collectible card game called Magic the Gathering. Okay.
Now, Lucas, is Magic the Gathering, is that the same kind of game someone may play? If you're at the blackjack table, if I'm in Vegas, if I'm at the blackjack table, and I say, hey, after this hand, do you guys want to go play some Magic the Gathering? What kind of response am I gonna get?
Unfortunately, no. I actually got some fun numbers for you on this one.
Oh.
For Magic the Gathering, the world champion of Magic the Gathering, I believe, when would it have been? 2007, 2008, won the Grand Prix for Magic the Gathering and won about $50,000 in prize money. Good chunk of change.
What year was
Same
this?
age. This was I'm sorry, what year?
Yeah.
Ah, man, I remember the deck that he ran, and it had Siege Rhino. It must have been 2009 or 2010.
Damn, there was that kind of money in it back then. That's insane.
Yeah, it might even be a little bit further if I'm getting my cards confused, but there's money in Magic the Gathering. But check this out. The World Series of Poker 2 years ago, or, pre-pandemic, 7 million plus for the number one prize pool for the World Series of Poker. Card games, and just to take a step back, a lot of this information is coming from Crash Course, awesome YouTube channel, great YouTube video on the history of card games, and they talk about those numbers to really legitimize and sell the idea that card games are lucrative, they're cared about, they're interesting, they're fun, and I think pretty much everyone listening or watching the video or listens to the podcast has probably played a card. Probably played multiple card games throughout their life, especially since me and you, Matt, as sort of 90s kids, born in 95 and 96, remember growing up heavily with the Pokemon card game, which came out in 1999. Right?
Lucas, I'm not going to lie to you. I was never really a Pokemon guy. Card game wise.
You had Pokemon cards, though.
I did have Pokemon cards. I notably tried to trade away one of my sister's cards to one of my neighbors. That did not go over well. You know what else I had, Lucas? I had Digimon cards.
You want to
What
run
do
us
you
through
think of
Digimon card? Okay, hang on. Digimon card feels like an oxymoron since they're aren't they supposed to be
okay,
digital
and
monsters?
Pokemon are pocket monsters. I don't know what to tell you.
It feels like it makes a little bit more sense in Pokemon. But continue.
I'll give you that. I don't even know where I was going now, but no, I was the Digimon. As far as collecting cards, I loved collecting the Digimon cards. I had Pokemon cards just because that's what everyone had, also at our age. I never learned. I still don't know how to play the game. Some of my friends now, shout out to my buddy Corbin and Zach. They're both very into the Pokemon card game as well. So and play it like competitively today. So respect to that. And but what I was really into, Lucas, was Yu-Gi-Oh. Still am. Not so much the modern game. There's been so many iterations because how else are they going to keep it interesting, right? Like they just keep adding like a new layer of rules every season that the TV show comes out. I think most recently there's like Pendulum Summoning and XYZ Summoning are the most recent ones, which I don't know anything about. I gave up after Synchro Summoning, but yeah, I was a big, big Yu-Gi-Oh guy. I played all the games growing up, because you couldn't play a lot of games like card games with people growing up. Not everyone was playing Yu-Gi-Oh, right? And it wasn't very accessible to get like the good cards and everything as a young child. So I played like all the video games that came out for the card game growing up, and it's just a good time. And fun fact, I learned how to play the card game from watching the TV show. And if you ever watched Yu-Gi-Oh, they kind of just say, screw the rules. I'm in an anime. Yeah. So I had to I learned the very basics of the game from the show. And then, of course, I actually learned how to play the game once I started playing the video games for the card game. And yeah, that's my brief history with card games and cards in general. And a little bit of Hearthstone here and there. I don't know if I've brought this up before by Internet Blizzard. Actually, not even really that proud of that anymore, to be honest. But
it's hard to be proud of that.
It was cool at the time, but not so cool anymore. But yeah, I dipped my toes in a Hearthstone a little bit. Didn't catch on for me too much personally. It was very okay, I think. And most recently, and I think in a way you can almost consider this a card game. We've been playing a lot of TFT.
I'm going to touch on that a little bit, actually.
Oh, well, hey, don't let me stop you. Take it away.
No, I love the history, the personal Matt history with card games. I think we all kind of grew up playing Yu-Gi-Oh in one way or another on the playground. whether you bought a starter deck at like Target or Walmart, for $10 and you played a little bit of that. And there was always some interesting game design elements that I think were really invisible to me as a little kid. And I think that as I've grown up and played more card games, got really into Magic when I was in high school, I learned certain things about Yu-Gi-Oh down the line for and don't like it for, which I'm going to go into a little bit of card game design down the line. But basically, in the 90s, we had a crazy craze of trading card and collectible card games that came out, including like literally hundreds: a Mortal Kombat card game, a 007 card game, an X-Files card game, a SimCity card game, several Middle-earth card games, a Doctor Who card game, a Xena the Warrior Princess card game, and even an Austin Powers card game.
Really?
Yeah, crazy. Just a ton of games. And I think, it's really the quick startup, the cheap barrier to entry, and just the natural ease of a card game being able to line itself up with an existing IP. Basically, if you had a popular anime in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, then it had a card game associated with that anime. There was like a Bleach card game, there was Dragon Ball card games, Naruto, there was everything. So card games over the last 30 years have kind of continued along, but obviously the big card games have really stuck around. Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic the Gathering. And these are very specific types of card games where you're trading cards, you're collecting cards, you're building a deck, and you're playing against another player, typically in a one-on-one setting. Lots of strategy, deceptively simple gameplay, easy to learn, very difficult to master, with, this is very important, a very high element of luck, which is unique to card games, is what I learned in my research. And I'm going to go into that a little bit. But yeah, tons of different card games that have existed. And in terms of card game design, I'm going to start going into design a little bit here, is the gamut of card game design is, the spectrum is gigantic.
Yeah.
It turns out the hundreds of card games that came out in the 90s, them kind of sucked, turns out. It's very rare for a game to really survive because it's really difficult to design a game that's fun, that's timeless, and has a barrier to entry that stays relatively low.
All those
over time.
games coming out before, right, is like the equivalent of any game with any PvP element making it a battle royale today, right? It's everyone just trying to cash in and get in on the hype.
Totally. That's totally right. Yeah. And that's a really good point, is like card games back then, I think, were really seen as like, this is pre like, jumping into a 100-person game of like a battle royale or jumping into a lobby instantly and playing against, hundreds of players online in a night. Card games are really an offshoot of the board game, which was more community-based, person-based, physical-based, something that people were more used to. And game design, digital game design, video game design, I should say, wasn't quite where it needed to be, but the card games were solid, especially Magic the Gathering, which is the one that I have the biggest heart for.
Hey, let me ask you something, actually, bringing up video games here.
What's up?
Is Hearthstone a video game or a card game?
Now, it's a video game because it cannot function very well as a physical card game.
Yes.
A lot of speed, a lot of elements of randomness, a lot of RNG. You'd have to shuffle your deck like 100 times in a match in order for it to replicate what's going on physically. But yeah, Hearthstone's interesting in that regard. And there's a few other digital-only card games that I think also are kind of in a weird sphere, but interesting nonetheless. Now, big thing, card games, resources. Okay? Now, when it comes to card games, one kind of element of design that's had a lot of staying power has really been resource management. Or card game manage resources. You brought up Yu-Gi-Oh, which is interesting. In the first season of Yu-Gi-Oh, I remember you were just able to summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon without sacrificing. Like in the first season, they just summoned big cards without sacrificing creatures.
I mean, they don't play remotely close to the rules. Like you can activate a spell card whenever you want. Trap cards have like no meaning relative to when they can be used. You start with 2,000 life points instead of actually, I don't. It's typically 8. To be fair, I don't know what like the standard was when the game actually came out, but typically it's 8. Yeah,
well, I do
totally.
I do remember I do remember that there in the very early days of Yu-Gi-Oh, when even I was playing, like when I was in elementary school, is there was people that played the game in that you didn't have to sacrifice monsters in order to summon a bigger creature, and they would
Right? Because
build
that's, I mean, that's
decks
what we all
around
thought it
that.
was. We all watched the
That's what you.
TV
That's what
show.
they did.
Yeah.
And then in the show, when they do the second arc, or it might be the third arc, which is the Battle City tournament,
They
they
finally start.
explicitly
Yeah.
they explicitly state like, oh, in order to, and they say they're so dramatic about it. In order to summon the big creature, you have to sacrifice
Yeah.
smaller creatures,
Yeah.
and that creates a resource in Yu-Gi-Oh. And you mentioned that Yu-Gi-Oh is really evolved in terms of its mechanics, in terms of its different summoning. Probably because it's a, no, a new, interesting way to manage resources. Because Yu-Gi-Oh does not have an innate resource system like Magic the Gathering or Hearthstone.
Well,
So
your monsters, right, are your resources.
yeah, exactly. And they double up as resources and monsters, which I think makes Yu-Gi-Oh pretty interesting. Um, Magic the Gathering uses a 5-color mana system where each color has its own advantages and disadvantages, which means that deck building often revolves around the management of these colors within your deck. Hearthstone, very simple. Each turn you get 1 mana, upping your maximum mana pool, and you're able to kind of, build your deck with very easy mana and, manage your resources turn over turn with your mana. So very simple there. I'm going to take it back to poker real quick. I'm going to blow your mind. Ready?
Please.
Poker is a card game with resources as well. The resource is
It's your
hard
money.
money.
Yeah. Yeah.
The price of entry, the cost of each turn is your resource in poker is money. Right now, it's weird
That's
to
pretty
think.
interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
Hearthstone is just poker with mana and vice versa, right?
And spending mana per turn in order to play and managing that mana or money turn over turn in the long run. Yeah. The only difference is that your money doesn't reset, or
Yeah.
does it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Damn.
yeah. It's interesting there. The next game design element I want to touch on is combat. A lot of these card games that we know and love have, whether they're digital or physical, have elements of combat. Combat, it's just a game trope in general. Combat is, barring like Settlers of Catan, I don't know a single game I play that doesn't have like some form of combat in it. You know, like in
Yeah.
one way or another, there's always combat, right? So card games are
I mean,
kind of no
Settlers of
different.
Catan brings combat outside of the board game. I
Army
think
army card.
itself.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it does. It does. The army card is the closest thing to combat in
The
Settlers,
night
but
card, yeah.
yeah, which is like not. It's very indirect combat, but nonetheless, combat. How does your game handle combat if you're a card game, right? Do the creatures fight each other directly? Do they have different attributes that stop them from hitting each other? In Magic, there's interesting things, mechanics like flying, right? So a creature with flying can't be blocked unless there's a creature that also has flying attempting to block it. You know, also interesting is when a creature attacks, it's not necessary that the defending player defends with a creature, right? You can choose not to block and therefore choose to save your creature from dying. Whereas
Hearthstone's similar in
Yu-Gi-Oh,
that way, right?
Hearthstone is actually you have to kill every creature in order to attack directly.
Okay.
So
That's how
it's more
Yu-Gi-Oh
similar to
is too,
Yu-Gi-Oh.
yeah.
Yeah, it's similar to Yu-Gi-Oh. So
Oh, I'm thinking
your
of
creatures.
Runeterra. Runeterra, you have the option, right? Or am I making that up too?
Yeah, I've heard Runeterra is a combination of Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone, more or
Yeah,
less.
I played a little Runeterra.
I'm looking to play that after doing a lot of the research here because I heard it's pretty solid actually. Um, Now combat is interesting because different card games all have a very very unique way of handling it. Even to the point of like, can you attack life points directly? Can you not? Or life points or health or whatever you call it. Do creatures function as like meat shields like they do in Hearthstone or Yu-Gi-Oh, or they become more utilitarian and have all these different effects? Can they be face down like in Yu-Gi-Oh? There's even Magic cards that have the ability to be face down too, which I find very interesting. Or do they have like enter the battlefield effects or long-term effects, static effects, actives, things like that? Creatures and combat always plays a very, very big role in card games. Poker. Blow your mind.
All right.
Just like combat between creatures and direct combat between players in these other card games we're describing, there's combat in poker too. But it's psychological combat. and it's the resource that you're playing for is money, right? So as a card game, if you want to kind of reverse engineer, I know it sounds weird to say it, but if you want to reverse engineer the design of poker and think from a card game perspective first and poker perspective second, even though poker predates it by far and away, you can sort of get analogies for card game.
You can get a little 1-to-1, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you like quite literally you can. So through a whole night of playing poker, which we've done, had some solid poker nights of some Texas Hold'em, is you do have combat with people throughout the play. When it comes down to kind of a one-on-one situation, last card to come out in Texas Hold'em, a lot of resources on the line. Your resources become your ability to play. The combat with the player is what you're fighting, right? That's what I find very, very interesting. The last thing with card games that I want to touch on here, randomness, games of chance. Okay. Now, there is an element of card games, many card games, pretty much all of them. Randomness is a huge portion of it, right? It's not overt randomness. It's not necessarily just a dice roll or a coin flip 50-50. It's a little bit of a stacked randomness that we invite when we're playing these kind of card games, right? So learning how to deal with randomness is one of the most fun things, in my opinion. There's a lot of gamers that don't like that, right?
It's
There's a
all
lot of
about
people.
adaptability, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, one thing is, I'm not sure if I ever have talked about Richard Garfield's luck versus skill continuum. Have I talked about this on this pod before or told you about it?
I don't think so. No, I'm not even familiar.
So Richard Garfield is the creator of Magic the Gathering. Incredible game mind. He has a great talk. It's on YouTube. It's the Luck versus Skill, Dr. Richard Garfield. It's actually on a cruise ship, the Magic Cruise, where he's giving a talk, a PowerPoint presentation on kind of the idea of luck versus skill when it comes to games. And he has a continuum of games that, picture an XY graph, X at skill, and is luck. So a low skill, low luck game would be like tic-tac-toe, right? There's not really a whole lot of skill involved. There's no luck involved. It's just kind of a game. There's nothing. It's not that interesting to play. Is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Your no skill, high luck game is bingo, right? You're not doing anything. In fact, there's zero skill involved. You're just kind of waiting for numbers to get called and just kind of putting things down. High skill, no luck, chess, right? There's no luck involved in chess whatsoever. But it's a dynamic game to play. It's very fun. We love playing it, all that. High skill, high luck would be poker, okay? And some of these card games that we like to play, like Yu-Gi-Oh!, TFT, Magic the Gathering, Hearthstone. There is such a high element of luck that we don't even really think about it sometimes because we go, oh, I built this deck, so I'm going to get this card. But everyone has felt in one way or another, oh my God, it's just not in the cards, right? In fact, the whole concept in Yu-Gi-Oh! About Heart of the Cards is where this element of luck is supposed to come into play, right? Where the element of luck is on your side. And that's, I think, such a core element to card games is this high luck element that we like. There's nothing better than like getting the thing that you want at the time that you need it. And that's what card games allow for that chess can never allow for.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the Heart of the Cards concept.
Yeah, just as a
Just in
concept.
principle. It's
Yeah.
happened to me many times.
Legit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It also helps that in some of the games that I played, like the video game versions of Yu-Gi-Oh!, they literally had a function called Destiny Draw, which is where you could like pre-select cards before your match started. That would be like if they're in your deck at that point and you are like last hit situation where you're about to die like next turn if you don't get the perfect card, you can do a Destiny Draw where you like get that card automatically basically.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. And I have had a few organic situations though where I just like randomly got the card I needed like the last chance and like turned the game around and won. I was like, oh, such a good feeling.
That's awesome. There's a Magic the Gathering mechanic. It's called Miracle, I believe. It's kind of an old one. It hasn't really been around for the concept of it is if you have no cards in your hand and you top deck a miracle card, it has like an insanely strong effect that's really buffed. Like it has a normal effect, but it has a miracle effect.
Yeah.
And like there were deck concepts when those cards would revolve around emptying your hand as quickly as possible and stacking miracle cards on top. So you just keep getting like
Oh,
crazy top deck situations.
I like
So
that.
that is like playing into the whole idea of like luck being a primary mean of like of joy out of your card game. And I think it should never be neglected. You know, I think we got to lean into a level of high skill and high luck when it comes to our card games. And that brings us to a few little categories here that I want to touch on, which is the digital card game and the card game hybrid, or the deck building card game. So digital card games have had a huge surge since 2014 with Hearthstone. We have Runeterra, we got Gwent, we have the Valve one. Oh God, it's slipping my mind. Artifact. And then
I'm
we
not sure.
have, yeah, and then we have like a number of different ones that have kind of come around due to things like sort of the digitization of classic card games that have been around. So Magic the Gathering Arena, for instance, is like a really big one, and even the Yu-Gi-Oh card games that you're into, like on Steam, right? So there's a big influx of card games that have kind of come around, and I think what makes those card games so interesting is that in many of the games that we play, the luck element is sort of not as pronounced, right? Like, I mean, everybody's obsessed with battle royales right now. There's a high degree of luck when it comes to looting, but it's not quite the same feeling of luck as you have in some, like a Yu-Gi-Oh, where the luck is more less of an overt randomness and more of a stacked randomness, where you chose that miracle card in a certain way,
Yeah.
right? You kind
Yeah.
of stack the odds in your favor to get what you want, but there's still always like the heart of the cards that has to come into play. If you just jump into a house, if you drop on a hot zone in Apex and there's just not a gun in the house, you just die.
Just
So
yeah.
it's just less fun to have the dice get rolled in that regard as opposed to the card game roll, right? So that's why I think I really like and appreciate the card game, and even things like TFT or auto chess. There's now an even another genre of game that's really emerging that Riot has really taken to, which is teamfight tactics or auto chess genre of games. And those are half card games, half auto battler games. And I know that Hearthstone has a mode very similar to it as well.
Mhm.
And what's very interesting about that is that it does have that. It has a higher level of luck than you would have in a normal game of Hearthstone or in any game of League, right? There's a huge amount of luck, and I think that for that reason, me and you really like TFT, right?
Yeah.
Because you like luck when in your video games, you like that element of chance, whereas many of people in our audience or gamers that we know are like, "Ugh, man, I played the game, I didn't get anything I wanted, and it's a bad game."
I
You know?
I need that element of luck because I'm bad at other video games and I'm not
See,
very
wait,
dexterous.
that's seriously though. I
Yeah.
think that sort of an equalizer for people. And I think it's interesting. But you also really like chess too, which has zero luck.
Yeah, but I'm fucking bad at chess. I like chess, but I'm really bad at it.
Well,
But I
hey,
think
I
it's really
mean,
fun.
can't have it all. We should. There's probably some variation of chess that has randomness in it. That would be pretty fun.
Chess.com has a lot of really like unique like one-off game modes that are kind of have a lot of that in it and stuff. But I think we should maybe host a TFP chess tournament. I think that could be fun.
Ooh, that would be super fun.
Yeah.
Actually, I like that a lot. Um, Anyway, I nerded out on doing some research on the game design elements here of card games, and I think the biggest thing that I kind of centered on was the element of randomness, which is very pronounced and proudly worn by all card games, at least all the card games that I've ever played. And I think that we can never neglect that element. I think that we should always lean into it and embrace it because it is an equalizer for one thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's nothing better than like really, really just kind of getting that level 3 singed at the last second, and like
Fucking
it
exhilarating.
and it's like, did you necessarily earn it? Is it a reward for hard work? Was it a grind to get the singed? kind of, not really, there's just, but hey,
I mean, I
I
think a
got it.
big part of the game, right, is or things like that is do games like TFT have a lot of randomness? Yeah, for example, you never know what kind of roll is going to come out every time you click the reroll button or every time a new round starts. However, what you can do is you can strategically um, randomness to make it less random, right? For
See,
example,
that's what I'm saying.
in TFT, there's a set amount of each champion. So if I know I need a particular level 2 champion and I have a lot of gold to spare, what I'll do is, okay, I'll start rolling through, and I'll pick up every other level 2 champion that's out there, because then it's more likely I'll get the other level 2 champion that'll show up eventually. And little things like that. And I mean, like in all these card games, right? Like Yu-Gi-Oh, Hearthstone. I mean, yeah, some of it's random with like the cards you draw, but that's controlled randomness because you're the one that put those cards in your deck in the first place, right? And
Right.
it's up to you as a player to being able to work with whatever randomness you get. Now, of course, you might just get like 6 draws of magic cards straight for some reason, just be absolutely fucked, or have no monsters you can summon. That's happened to me a few times in Yu-Gi-Oh, but and I'm sure there's other variations of that where you just get absolutely destroyed by your draws in Hearthstone or Magic, whatever game you may be playing. But there's plenty of other times too where, I mean, in the majority of the time, where if you build out your deck well enough, or your whatever your resources are in that game, you're able to work within that randomness to create a positive result no matter what.
Exactly.
And like
Exactly.
that's what sets top TFT players apart, right? I mean, if it was totally just built off randomness, then like anyone could be potentially grandmaster or plat, diamond master, what have you. But the people that can really thrive in those scenarios are the people that can pivot, pivot their builds, pivot their strategies mid game when they're recognizing, okay, I'm not getting as many of these, or oh, someone's already taken all this resource, things like that.
Totally, man. Didn't think we get a TFT lesson on this episode.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's making me
Love it.
want to play more TFT, honestly, just
I
talking
know, I
about
know. The
it.
new
Yeah.
set is fun, and it's always fun to get like a little dopamine hit that gambling provides in TFT, unlike any other game that we play, which is great.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, for anybody else interested in more card games, obviously there's a lot of board games out there, and card games kind of go along with that. Deck building games are really great for those of you trying to kind of dive in. Dominion, obviously the first and really popular deck building game. I have played Legendary, which is a Marvel deck building game, and it is very, very fun.
Big Marvel guy, so I probably like it.
Yeah, apparently
Spider Man in it.
yeah, Spider-Man. Basically every Marvel hero is in that card building or that deck building game, and it's really fun. It requires less board than most board games. It's less of a board game and it's more of a tabletop card
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
There's an Attack on Titan deck building game that seems cool.
Really?
There's two Rick and Morty ones. Yeah,
There's
it's
so
like
many.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's very easy to kind of for companies to take an IP and start double dipping into the tabletop, card game genre,
Yeah.
as we've
100%.
seen over the last 30 years. But I think there's a higher level of quality that we demand in our board games and tabletop games these days. So hopefully all these are at least decent.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So, I just want to leave everybody with a few things. Next time you're out and about is, really think about how much card games have played a role in your life, whether it's great memories of Uno with your family during Christmas, or, if you ever played competitive Magic the Gathering, or you love poker nights with your buds. These are all card games, each with varying degrees of luck and skill, and they're fun nonetheless, right?
Yes.
We're all part of this just long history of humans that have had this universal love and interest in card games, and for 1,000 years we've been interested in it. Card games have been used with tarot cards. People win and lose millions at the poker table in seconds because of cards. And some cards are worth more than their own weight in gold. Many cards are. And it's just incredible as a society that we value cards that much.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic of just how ridiculously inflated Pokemon cards have gotten the past like year and a half, 2 years.
I know, man.
Curious to see how long
I
that'll
don't even want
last.
to act like I know anything about that because I really don't.
It's nuts. Yeah,
But yeah, man, that about wraps it up for me and card games, their history and their design.
I love it. That was a fun one. Your lecture series are always fun. I think just for branding consistency's sake, we got to keep these as anything's possible. But there's another world out there, an alternate universe where you have your own lecture series within the podcast.
We gotta start branding these, huh?
And I'm like the young, eager college student that just wants to learn. Um,
Yeah.
all right, everyone. As always, if you want to hit us up, chat, shoot us an email. Thanks for playing pod@gmail.com. Subscribe to us on YouTube where you can catch these live streams live, as well as some clips we'll post here and there when we have a chance. Additionally, as well, guys, don't forget, hey, come hang on our Discord. You can find it at thanksforplaying.live, as well as on our Instagram and Twitter, both of which are at TFP Podcasts. That's at TFP Podcasts with an S at the end. And yeah, if you want to hang out with your good buddy Matt, maybe tell me how lame my beard is because it hasn't filled in.
Looks great.
Thanks, man. You're my
mean that.
inspiration.
I really mean that.
Yeah. Normally you're the one with the beard, but you're a little more clean shaven than me right now, which is pretty opposite actually.
This is weird.
Little role reversal. Yeah, a little role playing.
Little Uno reverse.
I lost track. Wow. Hang out with your good buddy Matt on Twitter. Good idea, Matthew Lucas. Where can we find you? And thank you, Alec, for quick shout out to our friend Alec in the chat for hanging out and enjoying the pod with us.
Thank you very much, Alec. You can find me on the Discord server. You can find the Discord server, like Matt said, by going to thanksforplaying.live. Finding me always chatting in there and chiming in on anything video games, game theory, game news, sales on Steam, or our Super Metroid Monday Hot Take series, where we're allowing our audience to jump in and give their super hot takes every single Monday. So come join us there. Come talk to me.
It's fun. I'm really enjoying the hot takes. It spurs a lot of fun discussion.
Yeah,
and,
totally.
No one's a dick, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm loving our community.
Yeah, it's awesome. Love it. All right, everyone. Remember, anything's possible.